Hey everyone, I hope all is well. My name is Catherine Morris. I am the Director of Public Programs here at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. And I am thrilled to be here with you all tonight for this program. I want to welcome you to the larger conversation, the synergy of dance in our lives, related to the Gardner's current exhibition, Shen Wei, Painting in Motion, currently on view through June 20th, 2021. Before we begin, I would like to mention some ground rules and helpful tips for having the best experience this evening. I want to start by saying this. The Gardner is an inclusive place that welcomes everyone. To have the best experiences today, we recommend that you use the chat actively and courteously to share questions and ideas. Please be sure to take care of yourself and each other during our time together and these times that we are in together. We recommend that you change your settings to side-by-side gallery view in the top right of your screen so you have more control to see all of the panelists and the artwork that will be focusing on this conversation. Once you select the side-by-side gallery view, you should then see a series of boxes pop up within different videos, including mine. To the left of those boxes are two vertical lines. You can move those lines to change the size of the images in speaker's video. Just so you know, a live transcript is available during this program at the bottom of your screen that will be providing captioning. If you have any questions or technical difficulties, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. We have support staff monitoring the chat and they will be able to assist you as needed. At the end of the program, there will be an opportunity to ask the panel any questions or share any comments. So please use the chat box. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for this panel, Pamela Tachich. Pamela has been the Executive Artistic Director of Jacob's Pillow since April of 2016. The Pillow is known for its signature summer festival, the longest running and largest international dance festival in the United States. Located in the hills of Western Massachusetts, the Pillow is now in its 89th year and has recently evolved into a year-round center to grow its mission to support dance creation, presentation, education, preservation and engagement, community engagement in its role as an incubator and hub for dance practice, performance, and scholarship around the world. Prior to Jacob's Pillow, Pamela spent 16 years as a director of the Center for the Arts at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, overseeing robust programming and acclaimed artistic initiatives for dance, music, theater, and the visual arts. With that said, I will give the floor over to Pam.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for that introduction. And I'm just delighted to be with you all this evening. I'm broadcasting from my office here in Beckett, Massachusetts, on the traditional lands of the Agawam, the Pecumtuck, the Nipmuc, and the Mohican. And I'm just delighted to really be a part of this exploration of the artist Shen Wei. And I want to commend the Isabella Gardner Stewart Museum for its deep investment in this dance artist, in his practice, his exploration, and his incredible accomplishment in the area of the visual arts. It is rare that we see a dance artist have this kind of exploration in so many different facets. And also the fact that we can appreciate this exhibition, even if we can't get to the museum itself. It's really been so wonderful to explore what you have available for people on the website. So Bravo to the Gardner. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you this evening our panelists. First, I want to introduce Lily Balch. Lily is a professional dance artist based in New York City. And since graduating from the Boston Conservatory, we're happy to say, in 2015 with a BFA in dance, she toured internationally with Shen Wei Dance Arts. She's had the opportunity to perform in venues such as the Guggenheim, the Kennedy Center, Lincoln Center, Brooklyn Academy of Music, Art Basel Hong Kong, and the National Center for the Performing Arts in Beijing, among many others. Beyond dance, her movement practice has been inspired by various forms of body work, such as yoga, Reiki, Tai Chi, and Alexander Technique. Our second panelist this evening is my colleague and friend, Jody Nimrichter. Jody was appointed executive director of the American Dance Festival in January of 2012. She previously served as the festival's associate director and co-director. Jody was also an associate producer for ADF's Emmy Award-winning series Free to Dance, which was a 3-hour documentary on the African-American presence in modern dance, for which she was nominated for an Emmy. And during her early tenure at ADF, she oversaw exchange programs in over 20 countries and managed the first US tour of the Guangdong Modern Dance Company. Jody was a production member of Great Performances Dance in America at 13 WNET New York, where she produced a number of documentaries and television productions. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Pam.
So to start off our conversation, I wonder if you could both talk about how you were first introduced to Shenway's work and what draws you to his work. Let's start with Lily.
Great. Well, thank you, Pam. My introduction to Shenway is kind of funny. I was at the Boston Conservatory and I was a senior in college, right, just about to graduate, and I kept hearing his name from like the really cool, in the know, gorgeous dancers of the conservatory kept talking about his name, and they were like, we're going to his summer intensive and winter intensive, like they're just immersing themselves in this Shen Wei. And so during the winter Christmas break, right before graduation, I had 1 semester left, I was like, I should go to New York and I should do some auditions, right? I'm about to graduate. And so I in Central Park, ran into these girls who just finished his winter intensive. And they were like, oh, the big Shenway audition is coming up next week. And you know what, Lily? You should go. Like I think he would really like you. And I was like, well, goodness, I don't know anything. So I go to this audition, and of course, everyone at the audition had done his intensive, so they're so in the know, and I feel crazy. But this moment is when I was like, yes, I want to work with this man, because unlike any other audition I went to before, as a dancer, every audition I went to was how fast can you pick up these steps? How accurate can you do them on the music? It's not really about you. It's about the movement and the steps and pleasing, their perfect vision in the moment. Where Shen Wei was interested in what is like your essence? Who are you, and what are you going to bring to this technique? And so, yeah, I didn't pick up the steps right away because I had never seen them. And it's such a rich vocabulary where he understands when you join this company, you spend the first 3 years just figuring out his technique. And so I went in and I didn't do many of the steps correctly, but I appreciated that that's not what he was so interested in. He was interested in something much, much deeper. And that is when I was like, I was auditioning him, he was auditioning me. And I think it just was a really nice match. And we've been working together ever since.
That's wonderful. Terrific. What about you, Jody?
I'm so happy to be here with you both tonight. And I feel like I've known him for a very long time, and it's such a privilege. But he was in residence at the festival in 1995. And he was there for the full 6.5 weeks, and he was creating a dance on ADF students that got all the necessary production values that he wanted, and it was presented as part of the season on a shared program. And it was quite a good work, but time passed. And then I saw his work again in 2001, a year after his company actually was founded at the festival. And I have to tell you, it was a breathtaking, momentous moment, because as I was sitting in the theater watching the work of this extraordinary artist, the company was performing a piece called Near the Terrace. It was something that I had never seen before. The movement quality was so slow, but so thoughtful. And then there would be explosive moments. And even though there was not necessarily any visual painting associated with it, I sat through the performance seeing a painting come to life. It was absolutely extraordinary. And I later learned that it was during this period that he had really been studying and learning about the surrealist painter, Belgian painter, Paul Delvaux. And out of that experience came Folding and Near the Terrace. But it was just these magical life-size paintings slowly unfolding themselves. And I knew I was seeing something extraordinarily different. And it's so exciting, chilling.
Isn't that, it's so vivid, your first memory. And that says a lot when you think about how much dance you see, that you have that, you've retained that powerful memory. And we're going to get to see some excerpts, some films. So those of you who haven't seen his dance before will have the chance to see it. But there's also a lot of resources on the website as well. So, you know, something that is really remarkable if you see Shenway's work is that it really transcends East and West. It is at one both. And I wonder if you both could talk a little bit about the elements that to you are most important in his work, and in particular about spirituality and nature and how they play a role in his work. And we have to note that today is Earth Day, and I think it's wonderful that we're talking about an artist who very much talks about himself in dialogue with nature. So maybe Jody, why don't you take this one first?
Sure. I just want to preface and maybe start with the fact that I think what's extraordinary about his background is that at the age of 9, he began studying training in classical Chinese opera, and that continued for 11 years. So just that foundation of training, which includes singing and music and acting, the visual elements, storytelling, production, then coupled later with his experience with breath and breathing, internal energy and awareness of oneself, which Lily talked about, and learning the movement, I think. He really immersed himself also in Eastern and Western visual arts. And then he studied so many different modern dance techniques as well as ballet. And I think that the combination of all of these amazing trainings really create something completely different. And it's the combination, it's not one of them, it's putting all of it together. And I think there was a period in his life in the 2000s that he was looking for a deeper meaning to what life was about. So he actually traveled to Tibet and spent time. He really followed the monks. He watched them do pilgrimages and journeys. He wanted to see how the cultures and the people were working. He really looked at the landscapes. So I think that he just took all of those learnings and trying to find this wider breadth of what life was about, and then going to Angkor Wat, studying this, the Silk Road, all of those things played a part into works that he did later, including the triptych called Re. And I think that's really when he started looking culture, different places, landscapes, how movement and landscape and spatial awareness plays a part in his work, both visually and choreographically.
Wonderful. And Lily, what about you? Can you talk a little bit about what you think are the most important elements, and in particular, if you have comments about the role of spirituality in nature?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is the work of being a dancer with him, is nature and spirituality are so intertwined, to the point his technique is called the natural body development technique. And in order to really embody it, you have to shed so many layers of habits and patterns, behaviors, thoughts, even ego, to the point where you're like this empty vessel for energy to just flow through your body so that you can flow across a stage. So it is, you have to be connected to something so much larger than yourself in order to tap into that natural state of being and moving. And that it all points to not only the body and the mind being so connected, but every dancer being connected, and our connection to nature. He's really interested in how everything is connected. And I smiled a bit when Jody mentioned near the terrace, because he's a choreographer, a director, an artist. It's kind of rare that I've come across in the dance world that's just as interested as what's going on in your mind as what's going on in your body. You know, and so much of dance class growing up, it's what does your body look like in the mirror? We're not talking about what's going on in your mind. And in Near the Terrace, it's amazing. It's my favorite piece to perform, because in my mind, I have to visualize. I have this like most amazing magical place that I am visualizing as I'm looking around the stage at other dancers, at the set, at my costumes, that I'm in a different world. And it's so fun to go there. And I think that's what reads as an audience member. And that is just the extra layer of, yeah, spirituality that's in his work, all with the intention of being as natural as possible. That makes sense.
It really does. And it does explain the power that we feel as audience members coming off the stage, because you are also viscerally connected with what's going on in your minds, in your bodies, and that's all connected. I wonder, Lily, you've been involved with the company since 2015, which is, 6 years. How has your experience as a dancer shifted over time with his work? Maybe where were you at the start? Where are you now? And you talked about you talked a little bit about that one work, but what keeps you going? What has kept you interested in this artist for this period of time?
Yeah, well, studying with him and his technique, because it is so spiritual, and it is about like I said, shedding those layers, shedding those layers, shedding those layers. Over time, it's become actually just so much more rich, and I've been able to. It took me years to learn his technique, and I actually think I am also a yoga teacher, and I actually had an interview the other day. It's like, why do you teach yoga? And I was like, well, I practice it, I teach it, I love it, because it's a lifelong journey. You're never going to stop learning. And I think that's the same quality within Shenway's work, because it's the work of the self just as much as it is like a dance technique. But I have to say, if I had to boil it down to like one experience that keeps me coming back, is in 17, I was part of the creation process of one of his big epic works, Neither, an anti-opera, a very challenging piece to watch and perform. But being part of the creation, seeing from his first vision of what this would be, to starting to play with choreography, to costumes, to set, to that whole experience to performance was unreal. And like the chance to perform that again, the chance to work with him in that way again, is like something I hope to do soon. I mean, this is a funny point in our life that we're in with the pandemic, but I hope to see it soon, right?
And when did that actually premiere? How long ago now? This is the Morton Feldman?
Yeah, I think it was October 2018 at BAM. Yeah.
So we're going to finally get to show you a clip to inform our next conversation. This is from Breath. Wonderful. So Lily, can you talk a little bit about the work that this segment comes from? And what I think is interesting as we look at this work is sort of, or his work in general, is where is the role of the individual and where is the role of the collective in realizing his vision?
Yeah. So this work, Undivided Divided, I believe premiered at the Park Avenue Armory, right? And before I entered the company, so I never got the chance to do this work. But something that I kind of touched on in the beginning is he is so interested in each dancer's like individual essence, right? Every dancer looks aesthetically different. Well, some dancers are high, intense, high strung, zippity dancers. And then there's like me, who's much more prefer to move like slowly, more calmly, right? And he kind of thinks of each dancer as like a different paint stroke, a different paint brush or color that when put together very intentionally, and each one has so much importance, creates the bigger picture. So yes, each individual is very important and very unique, but we make this collective where also we have to be connected, because in every piece that he does, every dance piece that he creates, there's always a section that is kind of improv based, chance based, not choreographed, like on stage, in the moment. You have to feel all the dancers in space and work with them. It kind of keeps you on your toes and keeps it like fresh. So there is that definite connection and collective, despite all the individuality within.
So even though it takes a long time to really enter into this technique, there is some freedom within that, right? Can you talk a little bit about the relationship to when you have agency and when you are really caught up in creating a collective sensibility?
Oh, yeah. So without the technique in your body, you have no freedom. You're just trying to copy what everyone else is doing. Like the first few years is copy paste, but then once you have the technique in the body, it's all about freedom. It's all about flow and expressing, the more you dive deep into the specific technique, the more you actually have the freedom to express yourself in the most amazing ways. Like sometimes I remember being a dancer at the beginning of, like, I just joined the company and I was looking at a dancer that had been there for 10 years. She's soaring across the stage and I'm like, wait, but we're supposed to internally rotate our right shoulder in that moment. And she didn't, but it didn't matter because she's like flowing. And that is the work. It's like, you have to fine tune all this technique to then like release it all, but it takes so much time.
Amazing. Fantastic to hear that. That's wonderful. So Jody, I'm going to ask you about the 2008 Beijing Olympics, which Shen Wei choreographed. And some of us remember what it was like to watch that piece. And it was so epic in terms of the Chinese history, the cultural history, the history of philosophy, aesthetics, the technology that was employed. It was extraordinary. I wonder if you could talk about the significance of that moment in Shen Wei's trajectory, and what did that mean to him?
It's interesting, because that was 2008, Pam, and his company was founded in 2000. And so really by the time he had been invited, he already had toured internationally and was performing with his company at some of the largest, most famous opera houses in the world. Mm-hmm. And as we all know, for many modern dance companies, many of them are starting out in very small theaters and hoping to someday graduate to something bigger, with maybe never reaching the opportunity to go to an opera house. But he was touring opera houses. He had reached international acclaim in the dance field. But the Olympic, getting the chance to do the Olympic opening was a little bit of a homecoming. He had not been back to choreograph something in China since 1999. Wow. So it was a long break from coming back. He recalls in my conversations with him that it was very challenging, but always the optimist. He says it was the challenge that he needed because it gave him more confidence.
Right.
I think it's really interesting to hear an artist who is already having so much acclaim and doing pieces with such imagination that was novel and unique. And unique is a hard word to use, but it truly was unique. So for him to have this opportunity that made him even more confident to then go on and create these other pieces, I just find sort of fascinating. And, it was the first time that he went back also since the founding of his company. And it was another 4 years before his company got invited to go to Beijing to perform.
I see.
So I just find the timing and the intricacies of the cultural and the invitation to come back, I think it must have meant a lot to him. But I know from conversations also with him, one of the things that he said he appreciated so much about that was that, normally he's going into a theater and his company is performing for audiences that mostly already appreciate modern dance.
Right.
What he was able to do at the Olympics is be inclusive of putting his cultural, history and this modern dance language. He rolling on the floor, painting, his dancers were the paintbrushes, and then, the images going up into the air. And he said, I think for the first time, it opened up so many people's eyes to what modern dance was and could be, that for him, that was like one of the greatest things about that experience, is that it wasn't limited to modern dance audiences.
Absolutely. And the fact that he worked with something like 10,000 performers. I mean, there aren't many choreographers, I think, to have that kind of, first of all, vision and ambition to figure out how to do that in this. I mean, what we're seeing is a picture. I really encourage people to go to YouTube. You can see some excerpts of the work, see these dancers painting the floor with their mitts, and then that central rectangle lifts up, and it's magnificent, and everything in between. So it's really remarkable. Great. I think what I'd like to do now is maybe take a look at two of the works in the exhibition that are a part of his movement series, where he uses paint and the movement of feet to create an abstract composition that's actually been compared to Western abstract expressionism and traditional Chinese calligraphy. Again, he's able to do both things at once. So Jody, talk a little bit about how Shen Wei's integration of visual and movement practice is distinctive. There are many choreographers who bridge those disciplines, but what's distinctive specifically about Shen Wei's approach?
I think one of the things, I mean, is that he literally is a trained visual artist, and he's a trained dancer and choreographer. It's not like he's bringing a love of a visual art and trying to make it happen. He is literally skilled in all of these different art forms. So I think that is also, again, unique, that how many how many incredible choreographers do you see having this amazing exhibit at a museum of their visual works? So he is quite extraordinary and quite different and set apart from I can't think of anybody else like him. But he has these beautiful paintings that we're seeing here. What's great is that in 2004, he first started playing with this kind of movement using his dancers in a piece called Connect Transfer. So it was beautiful. He had clean canvases on the stage every night the company performed. And he had created all of this beautiful circular movement on these canvases. And at different times, the dancers would release different colors of paint. So they were the human paintbrushes that created visual paintings on the stage canvas every single night. And it was just like, you know, it's clearly where also, you know, a little bit of the improvisation happens, because no two canvases ever looked alike. But such a smart man, and always, you know, the finances of doing productions are so difficult, but he had to have a new floor every night. So after the performances, audiences would be in the lobby, and they would be able to buy cut up pieces of the canvases from prior performances as a souvenir. So in the background, if you can see a little bit, those are just two of the, and he did every size and shape and the different colors, but those are two of the pieces that I treasure to this day. I have some in my house, but just beautiful. And yeah, he's been inventing how to merge these art forms, I think, since the beginning that he was choreographing. And it just keeps evolving and expanding, because now it's visual art, choreography, film. It just never ends. It never ends with him. So I think he's extraordinary. And one of my conversations with him, you know, when we last were together, he is the kind of person that if he sees something and he thinks it's done well, but he might need it. And a simple example is, he had just gotten a new apartment, and he said, you know, I need to get some curtains. But when I was looking at curtains, I saw the way people were making them. And he's like, well, I can do that. So he can sort of do, like, if he needs curtains, he'll make curtains and he'll do a better job. If he wants this, he's going to do this. So that's why I think he's involved in every single aspect of his productions, because he is meticulous and thoughtful and wanting it to be perfect.
Oh, yeah. And I have to add to her Connect Transfer story of dancers flying across the stage to the painting the canvas. So we have paint like in our hands, right? So when we're going across the floor and moving, we're making the painting. You can't rehearse for that. So I, like, you know, Jody was mentioning, it's my first international tour as a young 18-year-old dancer at an Italian opera house. I could never even imagine performing in this place. And I have a handful of paint, and I'm like, I have no idea what's about to, like, I don't know how this paint is going to land on the canvas. But then you just trust, okay, trust in the movement. It's not about me being a painter. It's about me being a paintbrush. My movement will deliver the stroke, and just go on. And then once you touch the ground, you're like, I'm good. But that fear of like, I have no idea how this is gonna go, because we don't, in our studio in New York, you can't paint on the ground, you know? So it's really special because you're performing and it's brand new at the same time.
That really also, to me, relates to what you were talking about, trusting the technique, that you've done your technique enough to trust it so you can add this additional layer, which is so exciting. So would you say over time, after you've done more of this work where you are a human paintbrush, do you think of yourself as a visual artist? Did you have any background in visual art that helped you connect to this task?
Oh, no, 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 no. I am a horrible painter. I do not consider myself a visual artist at all. But I am very comfortable now with my whole body covered in paint, dancing, and whatever is created from it. It's actually, I'm not interested in that. But I know people are, and I know Shen Wei is. I'm more interested in, okay, what, you know, dancing, and then it's kind of fun to see what it creates. But yeah, but never been trained as a visual artist. And it's funny, Shen Wei has us create, one day he'll be bringing a bunch of fabric and be like, we're making costumes today. Then none of us are costume designers. But what can you do when you throw it around like this and move with the technique? And you're like, okay, I'm trying. And it creates this beautiful skirt that's in line with an extension of your body's movements.
Wonderful. So I think I'd love to know just a little bit about, since you said you were in the room at the start of the opera and that he's involved in every aspect. Jody mentioned how involved he is in every aspect of the works that he makes, and we're seeing some of those images here. Can you remember where it begins for him? Does it begin in the performance, in the visual art? Where does it emanate, do you think? And maybe I'll ask both of you, from your knowledge of him.
Yeah, I can't say for sure. I do remember the first day of being in the rehearsal space when he just came in and played this music, the anti-opera, and read this Samuel Beckett Neither poem, lyrics, words, and then drew this big scale, like epic image of dancers like shooting across the stage in this set, which is a big production, big set of 8 doors. So we had the large vision first, and then it was like the details came, versus choreography. And then what does this mean? You know, it was very much, he's a vision man. He sees the big picture, and then the details get fleshed out, I think. Yeah, that's what I think.
And Jody, would you agree from your knowledge?
Yeah, I think, Lily, I think you're really dead on. And I think he's so visually oriented that the production sets and values might not be totally cemented in, but he does have a beginning concept of how he would like the stage to look. And then it all begins to come together. And I think he challenges himself to constantly think of new, interesting, unexpected ways to use the stage, both with the dancers, but then the set design, I think, has been really powerful in terms of, you know, whether the floor becomes the canvas or whether he has walls and chairs on the, you know, floating on the walls, to the video projections and just the intricate diagrams, even for his piece, for example, of Rite of Spring. It is you know, instead of the set hanging, the set is basically on the floor again. So I just think, yeah, concepts of how visually effective the entire production will be is always at the forefront of his mind, I think.
And he has the skill to realize what's in his mind in a remarkable way. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions that have come from our audience this evening. First is for Lily. You had the opportunity to work in the film Passion Spirit, commissioned by the Gardner. And can you speak about what it's like to work intensely with Shen Wei over a period of time? And can you speak about the quality of focus that is in Shen Wei's approach to creativity?
Yeah, so like Pirana mentioned, this work that we did with the Gardner, Shen Wei and I were there as artists in residence for like 4 weeks, and I was the one dancer. And normally I've been with 18 other dancers, 10 other dancers, where we can take Shen Wei's vision, and he doesn't just use words to describe what he wants. Sometimes it's literally movements or just sounds. And we could kind of translate it together. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm here trying to absorb and understand. And I will say the process, the creative process, day one, when I showed up, he had all these, the artwork that he was inspired by. He had took photos, the sculptures that are in the museum. It was all inspired by the work in the museum. And the story actually unfolded as we were working together, which was great because I felt very much a part of the creative process with him. And yeah, I mean, it's certainly intense. I mean, there's a shot, I don't know if you could go back to the previous slide. It's okay if you can't. Where, oh, maybe the one right before that. I don't know, I'm in the water. Yes, okay, so that's in the one to the right. I'm in plastic in the lily pads in the water. And I had to stare at a tree for like a solid 3 minutes without blinking. without blinking. And he's like, okay, and just asking me to go in my mind into this place and slowly, yeah, like his vision is beyond what I think I could even, like, it's physically possible, but you just do it. You trust that, okay, what he sees is possible. Although there's a fish swimming through my legs right now, I've got this. So I don't know, it was definitely challenging and rewarding all in the same time.
And I guess another question that's come from someone is, you know, Jody, you talked about Shen Wei beginning his work in dance as a part of his study of opera as a young child. How old was he again? And how would you say his work has changed over time in the time that you've studied it as, you know, at ADF when you were there for his, you know, him as a someone choreographing the students to these works? What's maybe changed and evolved?
So he was 9 years old when he started training, and he trained for 11 years. So a very intense period of his life. I think why I wanted to start sort of how I first met him is that, like, he did this very wonderful work when he was doing this piece when he first moved to the US on ADF students. But you might not have, you know, gone home and told all your friends about it, but enjoyed it very much in the theater. But what was different is, I think, that you jump forward to 2000 and 2001 and ever after, is that visual element took hold, and that he really started combining all of the amazing art forms and experience that he had garnered through his whole life. And I think he, in my opinion, maybe that first time I saw him, he was trying, I don't know for sure, but it felt, maybe he was trying to be too Western. And then afterwards, it was like, oh my God, it's like this fusion of where he's come from and where he's come. And I think that that's constantly evolving because he is such an international person. He lives in New York part of the time. He spends a lot of time in China. Now he's spending a lot of time in Paris. So I think every element compounded onto the other just keeps exponentially pushing him forward. And I think, you know, he's using video a lot more and he's interested in that. So with technology, he's incorporating more of that into his pieces. But I think he's one of those people that's sort of unstoppable. So if there's something new, he's going to explore it and it will show up in his work.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'll just ask you to briefly answer one last one, which is the joy and excitement in your voices when you speak of the experiences you've had with Shenway are palpable. Is there a work in the current exhibit at the Gardner that evokes the same kind of joy in you? If you could each just mention one, if you can think of it before we close.
Yeah. Okay, so you see this, the biggest painting in this picture. There's one of similar size right across the gallery. If only we could just pan. But it's pretty similar. It's part of his black, white, and gray series. And there is so much going on in these paintings. So many different textures, so many different qualities. And there's a piece that we did inspired by these paintings. So this is a moment where he did this whole series of paintings and then brought images into the studio. Maybe we were looking at a phone, I don't know. And we would each zoom into a very particular, like 6-inch sort of square that we liked and chose a specific stroke or texture. Or, there's some cloud-like qualities, there's some heavy drips, there's some strokes that are quick. We would each choose one and then create phrases in our bodies that embody the painting. And then this is a moment where each individual dancer, like I was really interested in the like slow drippy strokes all the way to the ground, like, and some other dancers are zipping around. And when you get all 15 dancers with their own different stroke that they chose from one of his paintings in a space together, it's like the painting coming to life, almost like Jody mentioned with, the terrace, where it felt like a painting coming to life. Well, this was really one of his paintings coming to life. And so I feel very connected to it. And I also just love all that's going on in that painting.
Thank you. And Jody?
I'll just quickly say, there's so many disappointments with COVID, but we had planned this, amazing anniversary celebration with Shen Wei coming back to ADF in 2020 to be in residence all summer. And he had shown me some of these extraordinary paintings, and the two with the blue in the background, just like I was riveted, because it's like I feel like they are dancing. I see the choreography in them. And we were just thrilled because, with permission with Shen Wei and also with this being in the exhibit, that we were going to turn one of them into a beautiful t-shirt, because it just felt like it would be such a stunning piece of artwork to wear. So we still plan to do that, but those two in particular, I see all the nature and I love all of the paintings, but those I see dances within them. So I think those are really, for me, two of my favorites.
Thanks so much. And thank you both for this amazing conversation. I feel like I've really understood so much about your experiences and about Shen Wei himself and his practice. So thank you. I'm going to turn us back over to Catherine to close us out.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to all of you, Lily, Jody, and Pam. It's been a wonderful evening to just hear your stories and your reflection and the passion and commitment to not just Shen Wei, but the work and what it has meant, its influence, its encouragement, its inspiration for all of you, and even those who've experienced as audience members on the back end, to be able to hear firsthand how dance, Shen Wei's work and upbringing has influenced the field of dance, but also the individuals who make the field advance the way that it is. So thank you all so much. Outside of that, we are adding some links to the chat for more information about our exhibition Shen Wei, Painting in Motion. and upcoming virtual programs in May that we hope all of you will join us for. Shenway Painting in Motion will be open through June 20th. You can purchase a time ticket on our website at gardnermuseum.org or use the link in the chat. But regardless, on behalf of all of us, we want to thank you for joining us and just have a remarkable evening. Thank you.